Yeah, so it's all of that. Like that's why education is key. So it's not only am I focused on helping children that have survived such an atrocity, but I'm also focused on the children and the families that have not experienced it because I always say that the best education is prevention, right?
Hmm.
So and it's the small things that we do as parents that we don't realize that we are potentially setting our children up to be victimized. Like for example, think of how when we were little, if we would go to a family event, you might not have wanted to hug uncle whoever or aunt whoever,
Hmm.
what your folks, you better get over there and hug that person, you know?
Right, right,
So
right.
like if your own parent is forcing you to do something with your body that you don't want to do,
Hmm.
then so we have to like after as parents we don't own our children, you know what I'm saying, like they were gifts to us, right? And
Preach.
so we're supposed to honor that, respect that, cultivate it, and so my son when he was growing up, if he wanted to, even now if he doesn't want to hug, you don't have to hug me. And I ask him, can I have a hug? You know what I mean? I ask his permission before I touch his body. He's at the age
Hmm.
now, he's 7, where he doesn't want to get undressed in front of me and say, my boy, I seen bigger, or boy, boy, you ain't got nothing that I ain't seen already.
Right,
I'm like,
right,
okay,
right,
cool. Let me know when I can come back in. You see what I mean?
right,
So we have to like educate and empower our children.
right.
So for me, and this is another thing too, like when we talk to our children, we have to be careful about the questions we ask, right?
Hmm.
Like we can't say, did somebody hurt you? Because it might not have hurt.
Right.
Because we have, you know, we have our private parts that feel good when they're stimulated. That's the same thing for children.
Right.
It
Mm.
might have felt good to them, which will also lend itself to their confusion and the
Right.
contradiction. So that was the case for me. Like when I first was sexually abused at
So
9.
on that. So what would you say though in that instance? Like
Well,
instead of
this
like what you like, did it hurt or something? Like
you just
what would be the alternate?
so one of the primary things you can teach your children is the bathing suit rule.
Mm.
So, no one should be touching you where your bathing suit covers.
Mm.
And so that's where you get into good touch, bad touch, you know? And then you're able to ask your child, has someone touched you in a bad place? Or has someone touched you where your bathing suit covers, you know? And it's not so much of what did it hurt, but it's have you been touched, you know? Um, and so, like for me, that was part of my confusion because it didn't hurt, you know. And then, of course, he threatened to kill my parents. So that was,
Mm.
that was another thing. And that's something else that I teach, children. Like they're going to say all of these things, you know what I mean? And so you have to just keep encouraging them to tell someone or just to know all of the tricks. Even grooming, like we are as parents, we're all about stranger danger, and that is true. But 90% of children know the person who sexually abused them.
Right.
So it's not the stranger. It's not the person that's grabbing them off the street, even though those are the cases that always get publicized and
Highlighted.
put on TV and Amber Alerts and all of that stuff. It's the principal, it's the teacher that's keeping you after school, it's your choir director, it's your basketball coach, it's the babysitter that your
Mm.
mom and
Right.
dad hired to watch over you while they went out on a date. It's the cousin when all the family comes over during the holiday and y'all are the children are upstairs and the parents are downstairs or the grown folks are downstairs and y'all don't come down here, hey, who's checking on the children? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's those types of situations where it breeds opportunity, and that's the key thing about preventing child sexual abuse is education and then removing those opportunities. So yeah, for me, when I did finally tell, I wasn't believed. And so and it caused some friction between me and my father. And so it's just a combination of all of that. I was confused. Like even the person that sexually abused me, he like afterward he wouldn't look at me, and so then I'm thinking something's wrong with me, so then I'm trying to make him like me again. It's
Mm.
like a whole mind, like your mind
You
is
go
as
through
a
a
child.
Stockholm syndrome type
Yeah,
situation where you
yeah, and
start
so it's
feeling
just
sorry
like
for the person who hurt you.
exactly, so you thinking that you did something wrong, You know what I mean? And so it's very confusing. So it's for me it was a combination of all of that, being scared that he would kill my parents, then telling and not being believed, being confused, like, well, maybe I did something wrong, so all
So
of those
you said that
factors.
you, I think you mentioned, you said you tried to go to
Yeah.
counseling for it.
Hmm.
But you said, but that wasn't
Yeah.
successful.
It wasn't successful for me because
Okay.
at the time when I was seeking counseling, this is, me, teens, early 20s, mom of two children on public assistance. So I didn't have like private insurance where I could get, the best care. So I'm using resources that are free. And then these free resources are people that don't look like me or men. And then every time I would go, I'm being shuffled. Now I got a whole nother person that I'm talking to who either is a man or doesn't look like me, who doesn't really understand my perspective from my frame of reference. We don't share the same cultural norms. So
Yeah.
you don't really even understand me as a person before we even get into my issues. And then I show up to an appointment as somebody brand new because, oh, this caseworker has been moved or shifted, your case has been given to someone else. And it's like, so now I'm being re-traumatized all over again because I have to start all over.
Yeah.
And so after a while, it's just like, forget this. And then they all want to put you on medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I feel like medicine is treating the symptoms, but I want to address the issue because I don't want to be on medicine my whole life. So those were my struggles. And I just found for me that the arts is what healed me better than traditional. I don't knock traditional
Right.
counseling at all,
Yeah.
but just like when a child is in school or when a teacher is teaching children, some children learn hands-on, some children learn just by reading, some learn just by hearing, so everyone has to know what's best for them and, walk in that lane
You
accordingly.
found your own space
Yeah, and so that's
to do
why.
that.
So every time I perform, like, even if I'm not performing and sharing my pain as far as, the child sexual abuse, um, it's still healing for me. Like literally one time, I tell this story, and sometimes people don't believe me, but it wasn't last May, but I think it was because this was before the pandemic. So I always make me like this special tea and I sip on that before I perform. So one day had a performance and I was getting ready to walk out the door and I was making the tea, wasn't paying attention as I was pouring the water and poured the hot water all over my hand.
Yeah.
So I'm like, my God. So I'm keeping my hand in ice, as I'm driving to the place. And it's that type of burn, where like it melts the ice and then the water turns hot too because your hand is radiating just that much heat. So I was miserable. It was at the Rail Garden. It was an outside performance. It was already hot outside. So I was miserable. So I kept my hand in the water, in the ice, right until it's time to go on stage. And I went on stage, and I remember when the music started, oh, my hand was throbbing so bad. So bad. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this performance. And then the performance was over, and I realized, I was like, my hand doesn't hurt anymore. And it never started back hurting. So, like, music really does heal. And so
Yeah.
it's healing for me, when I'm singing, when I'm connecting, like I get to, cause me typically I'm real chill, but when I'm on stage, like even sometimes in practices when we be in practice, they be like, hey, give us some feeling. And I remember
Right.
either you or Em said, just wait till she get on stage. Like
Right.
she chill right now. That's just because she's trying to get through the
Right.
mechanics,
Yeah.
make sure I can hit the notes.
Right.
But on stage is something completely different. So on stage I might, move my body, release the energy, stomp my feet, scream real loud to hit a note. It's all healing for me. So
Keep it presidential.